to speak at a conversational pace and remain muted when you're not speaking. Hola a todos, mi nombre es Andrea, estoy aquí con mi colega Gisela y estamos aquí con la Community Language Cooperative. Vamos a practicar la justicia del lenguaje el día de hoy y tendremos interpretación simultánea en inglés y en español para que todos podamos hablar y escuchar y comunicarnos en el idioma de nuestro corazón o como nos sintamos más cómodos. Una vez que aprendamos la interpretación, van a ir a los tres punticos en la parte inferior de su pantalla o donde dice más o more y ahí van a poder seleccionar su idioma. Por favor, recuerden hablar un paso conversacional y mantenerse mudo cuando no estén hablando. And host, we can begin interpretation now.
Welcome to the State Senate District 17 Candidate Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters and the Longmont Public Media. My name is Josephine Porter, and I'm a proud member of the League of Women Voters, and I'm pleased to serve as moderator for tonight's forum. The League of Women Voters is a political, nonpartisan organization. For over 100 years, we have encouraged informed and active participation in government and influenced public policy through education and advocacy. To remain nonpartisan, the League and Longmont Public Media neither support nor oppose any political candidates or parties. Longmont Public Media is broadcasting this forum live on cable system channel 8 and 16 on the Longmont Public Media YouTube, LPN's website, and LPM's Roku TV app for smart TVs. The forums will also be made available for later viewing at LWV ABC website and at the League's YouTube channel. Now to the forum. The Colorado Senate is the upper house of the Colorado General Assembly and is composed of 35 members elected from single-member districts, with each district having a population of about 165,000. A senator is elected to a 4-year term and is limited to serving 2 consecutive terms. The legislative session begins no later than the second Wednesday of January and lasts up to 120 calendar days. Senate District 17 comprises of almost all of Erie, most of Longmont, east of 95th, and the city of Lafayette. The format for tonight's forum will be as follows. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement. We will then ask the candidates as many questions as time permits. Questions have been submitted electronically to the League by the community, and we have reviewed them for just to clarify, and sometimes we will combine questions on a single issue. For most questions, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer, but I may expand the time to answer depending on the question. We will finish up with 1 minute closing statements. Tonight's forum participants are in the order they appear on the ballot: Tom Van Loan and Sonia Jaquez Lewis. Now to the opening statements and questions. For the opening statement, we will begin with candidate Van Loan.
Hello, League of Women Voters. I want to extend my appreciation. I started running for public office in Erie in 1996, and the League of Women Voters was the entity that would provide the forum for the debates for the Erie elections, of which I participated in 4 of them. So I appreciate you being here one more time to open this up. Josephine, I also appreciate you being the moderator. So far, so good. Opening statement. My name is Tom Van Loan. I'm running for Senate District 17. I am married. I have been for 30x years. I married my beautiful bride on the front porch of my house in Erie because she wouldn't marry me any other way. I have 6 grandchildren and 3 wonderful children. I'm a college graduate from Wichita State University. I am a contractor by trade, general contractor, and I am a real estate person. I find that the 2 tie each other together. That was it. That was 1 minute.
Candidate Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you. My name is Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis. I would like to thank the League and CLC for hosting us tonight. It's been the honor of a lifetime to represent Longmont, Lafayette, and Erie in the Colorado Senate. And as a pharmacist, I've been working on cutting costs for healthcare and prescription drugs. That's a top priority. When Governor Polis asked me to lead the charge on big healthcare cost-cutting bills, we passed all of them. And President Biden recognized my work by asking me to serve on an advisory group, and my suggestions help lead Medicare to negotiate lower prescription drug costs. I'm honored that the League of Women Voters in Boulder County named me as one of their legislators of the year. And
that question is, what are your top priorities for the next legislative session? And what do you think is the single most important issue for this district?
Yes, well, I mentioned some of them. Obviously, cutting costs for our citizenry is very important, and for all of our residents. Healthcare costs, insurance premiums have been going up. We are doing work on that I helped make sure that we had the public option, which is a health insurance plan to make sure everyone in every county of the state has accessible and affordable healthcare insurance. We are looking at expanding Medicaid and making sure we can re-enroll some of the folks that dropped off during the COVID unwind. I have several bills on prescription drug costs. We can do more in that category. I'd like to see us do more for housing. We have passed many strong housing bills, but insurance costs for housing is going up, and we can do something about that. I have constituents who have reached out and said, my insurer is no longer going to be, oh, that's all right. I'm sure we can get back to housing.
Candidate Van Loan.
Yes, Senator, I'll help you out. Housing was one of the top issues. And so speaking to top issues, there are thousands of issues. So it's hard to say, here's my tippy top one, because as we all know, you get into office and there are hundreds of issues that come at you. So you can't really narrow it down to one. But I would say that cost of living is my number one if I had one. The cost of things in Colorado and the United States has just gotten out of hand for everybody. I'm 64. I'll probably make it through unscathed, but I have grandchildren that I would like to see have the same opportunities as myself. And nothing I'm going to say tonight disparages any representative, any government. I love Colorado. I love the way we're set up. I think that the government does a very fine job with what it has to work with. So housing, food, taxes, insurance, healthcare, energy, utilities, and then safety is always a big one for me. And hopefully I get to expand on that later.
For the next question, we will begin with candidate Van Loan. Do you support state control over local government zoning decisions? If so, under what circumstances should the state override the local government planning process?
Well, this will be a quickie, save me a lot of time. No, I don't support that.
Candidate Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you. I wish I could be that brief, but I do want to say a few words about this. I believe in local control myself. I have run several bills that allow for local control to dictate first. One area that I'm very passionate about is local control for environmental impacts. Certainly the impacts of oil and gas, pesticides, air quality. I would love to see the needs and the desires of local control take that as a priority. And in my bills, it does. There are instances where statewide policy must be made. Gun violence prevention is an area where we need more statewide policy. Education is paid for by our state funds. So there are areas where I think statewide is important.
The next question will begin with candidate Jaquez Lewis, and we're going to do 90 seconds for this.
Okay.
So let me get this. I need my timer person to get it to 90 seconds. Great. How would you address the ever-escalating cost of housing in Colorado? Should the state play a role in providing funding for affordable housing? If so, what sources should be tapped to fund affordable housing?
Yes. Well, yes to all of that. Affordable housing is in the top issues for our Senate district and for the state. I've run several housing bills that I believe are already decreasing the cost of housing. We worked on for renters. Every time they go and apply for an application for rent, they were being charged $50, $75, $100. We passed a bill that they just have to do that once, and so those fees won't keep accruing. We passed a bill to let local governments have the first say on a multi-unit property, so that if that property becomes available, the local government, in combination with nonprofits or our Department of Local Affairs or our Colorado Housing Association, could go in together and designate that as affordable housing. That's a first right of refusal bill. And we believe, at least the studies have shown, that will save a lot of money. I voted several times to lower property tax assessments. And I do believe that we have done a good job in doing those property tax reductions. I also know that we have given many exemptions to certain classes of folks, seniors, Gold Star families, veterans, and I plan to continue that kind of work if I'm reelected.
Candidate Van Loan, and you have 90 seconds.
And the question was how to reduce housing costs?
Well, yes. Address the escalating cost. How would you address the escalating cost of housing, and what role should the state play in, if any, in providing funding for affordable housing, and what sources could be tapped to fund that?
Yeah, so the state definitely needs to be involved in affordable housing because the market isn't going to do it by itself. I don't know exactly what the state can do, since my penchant for local control of zoning issues will override anything else. But the cost of housing is not a state purview, meaning the very first thing you do is buy land, which is up to you and the seller. Then you get involved with the local jurisdictions, and they're going to rack up their fees. Then you're going to get involved with all the studies, and they're going to rack up their fees. And today I paid $3,000 for paint for a 2,500 square foot house that used to cost me $1,000. So there's a whole bunch of factors to this affordable housing. And I think the addition of tons of regulations from every level of government is overwhelming the building world. I'm working on the Marshall Fire right now, and it's 200 grand. It's what's been added because of government regulations to this poor man's house that got his house burned down. So I think government's got to look in the mirror and take a little bit of responsibility for these, and particularly at these local levels. The building permit in Erie right now costs somewhere around $75,000, and I think that's too high. But to answer the very first question is yes, the state and federal need to be involved in affordable housing.
A follow-up question, and we will begin with candidate Van Loan. Should the legislature address the rising costs of home insurance? What could be done, and how would it be funded?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of my top ones. I got this brand new Leaf electric car not too long ago, and the cost of the car is nothing. The insurance on the car is more than the payment. So now flip back over to housing. Insurance companies have to make money, but I don't think they should be allowed to drop you. They shouldn't be allowed to raise your rates to exorbitant levels. And I think, yeah, the state maybe needs a heavy hand in that, because it's going to turn into medical insurance and everything that runs up the costs for the medical side if we don't get a handle on it now. So yeah, I think the state needs to get involved in the insurance game.
Candidate Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you. I believe that we have two factors going on with insurance. Now we have a higher cost of homeowners insurance, and my opponent brought up car insurance. We have done some things to reduce homeowners insurance. We've made it easier for homeowners to get outside of some of the regulations of HOAs. During COVID, We had folks who didn't want to spend all the money on watering their lawns. They wanted to have gardens. And so I wrote a bill to have xeriscape approved by HOAs. They could not stop that. So a lot of folks have decided to be water saving in what they do. For homeowners insurance, I mentioned the constituent who doesn't have insurance anymore. I've met with the DOI, and we have a fund that is being set up for folks that don't have insurance.
The next question, and we'll begin with candidate Jaquez Lewis, and we'll get 90 seconds for this question. What are the most important legislative actions needed to better support children and families in Colorado? Should the state play a role in providing all Coloradians with access to basic needs, including food, housing, and healthcare?
Thank you for that question. During COVID, the very first bill that I worked on was a child care assistance bill, because I had a firefighter in Lafayette contact me and say, I don't have child care. I'm a frontline responder. My spouse is also a frontline responder. We don't have anyone to watch our child because the child care centers had closed down. So we came up with some options and some funding for child care, and I want to continue doing that. That is a big issue for a lot of families. The earned tax credit that many families were depending on during COVID, that has not been renewed by Congress. So Colorado, I voted along with some colleagues to continue that. I think we need to pressure our Congress delegation to get that passed. For families, we can do all kinds of things. I've passed bills on job training and education. I'd like to see us do more in that area. We have a workforce that's actually growing. We have folks that want to even come back and have different careers. So we need to put some money towards retraining so that folks can work if they want to work. And that is something I'm very committed to.
Candidate Van Loan.
Yes, of course. We need to support our families and our children in any ways that we can. And the state can do X amount of things through tax credits and retraining, and more or less being the sounding board with all the different issues that are surrounding childcare, because everyone's different. Some people do homeschool, and that's sort of a childcare 2-in-1. And some people like myself go to work 7 days a week, and we need child care. And so I think that if you can make it more affordable, like anything else, there are some rules and regulations with child care that get a little burdensome from time to time, and I think we should look at those. But I am big on family. I have 6 grandchildren, and I watch my son. I have to get a kick out of him because I busted it for 7 days a week, and now I'm watching him do it so he can support his 4 children. So I get a kick out of that. But the bottom line is you have to want to participate in the programs also. It's a two-way street. The state just can't hand you child care. We've got to use a carrot and stick. So yeah, I'm all about child care and families, and go for it. Thank you.
The next question, and we'll begin with candidate Van Loan, is regarding immigration. Should the influx of migrants into Colorado, especially to the Denver area, be aided at the state level rather than depleting the funds of cities bearing the brunt of their costs? If you say yes, how is that best handled and funded?
Okay, that's not the question on immigration I thought I would get, but I like it. In construction, we use immigrant labor on the daily. And lately, there is a surplus of immigrant labor. And what's bothering me is not that the state should help. What's bothering me is the lack of coordination. These particular people don't always have insurance that's required. They don't have car insurance. They don't have all the things that the state burdens everybody else with. So if the state's going to assist in immigration, it needs to pony up all of the dollars that should go to help this cause. But in general, I think we need to get a handle on the amount of immigration and vet who's coming in. And the federal government needs to get a handle on this. The states are being burdened by it and shouldn't be.
Candidate Jaquez Lewis.
Yes, thank you. I do agree with Tom that this is more of a federal issue, but I do want to address the question. At the state level, we did put some state funds into assistance for the Denver public school system because they did have additional children of and immigrants coming into DPS. Our Senate District 17 has not had a significant amount of money that they have had to outlay for immigration, but certainly Denver had, I believe it was 40,000 immigrants come in, and they did have to take that on. Now the state has voted to give some funds to try to help Denver for that. There was also a significant amount of money that was given in renters renters assistance program because many of the immigrants are renting.
The next question, and we'll begin with candidate Jaquez Lewis. So on education, but it's the constituent asks, what is your position on ballot measure number 80 that would create a constitutional right to school choice and equal opportunity for K through 12 children? In effect, this measure would require as a constitutional right that the legislature allocate public funds for private schools and homeschooling.
Thank you for the question. I am an educator. I do teach in the higher education level at the School of Pharmacy periodically. Public education is near and dear to my heart. I've been endorsed by the CEA and other education groups for my work to support public education. I do not support Amendment 80. And that is because if that passes, that would, as you have asked, redirect funds away from public education. There's also some worry about Amendment 80 that charter schools could have different policies that could end up discriminating against members of my LGBTQ community, some of the students that go to the charter schools, and that certain books could be banned. So I have been urging people that I talk with to please vote no on Amendment 80.
Candidate Van Loan.
My wife sat on the St. Vrain Board of Education for 8 years. Part of that time I was on the town board at Erie, so it overlapped, and my eyes were opened a lot about public education, and I very much support public education. I'm a public educated man. I don't support 80 because I don't support the constitutional amendment section of it. I think the legislature should get a handle on this and not leave it up to the initiative type people. And because the legislature can do more than one thing. What we're doing here is guaranteeing that charter schools have a right, private schools have a right to exist. And I think it's a slippery slope towards defunding public schools in favor of private schools. And I am not for that. I am a big supporter of public schools. I'm also a supporter of choice. I just don't want it in my Constitution. Thank you.
The next question, and we'll begin with candidate Van Loan. Do you think the legislature has any role in legislating the process or parameters for removing books, including books by LGBTQ plus authors, from removing them from schools or public libraries? Removal requests seem to aim at harming BIPOC and LGBTQ plus communities.
I am not a fan of discriminating against anyone ever. And so in asking that question, someone has to control something. When I was a youngster, Playboy magazine was behind a shelf and you had to ask for it. That was essentially censorship, but I was, you're 10 years old. So I think if you have an age appropriateness to what's going on, we also have various levels of government already, which is the school board and then the state school board. So should the legislature get involved by creating the entity of the state school board? Sure, it already is involved. I'm not big on banning books, but I'm also not big on inappropriateness. And that's what the issue is what's inappropriate to me might be appropriate to someone else. And so a tough question, I would leave it to the local school boards for now and keep the state out of it.
Candidate Hawkes Lewis.
Thank you. Well, here's where we might disagree. In fact, I think we do disagree. I am the co-chair of the LGBTQ caucus at the Capitol. I'm proud to say I'm the first LGBTQ senator elected from Boulder County and Weld County. And the banning of books is something that I find really abhorrent. It goes against our freedom of speech. It goes against educating children in a way where they need to get information and yet they can't. We already have an example of the Elizabeth School Board that has already banned over 100 books. Many of them, they believe, have something to do with LGBTQ and trans youth. And so I think the state does need to step in there because we can already see in a local area where discrimination is occurring. I hope we can fix this. I think it's wrong, and so I hope we can fix it.
The next question, we'll start with candidate Hawkes Lewis, is on climate change. Climate change has directly impacted Senate District 17 communities in the form of drought, heat waves, and extreme weather events, and disasters like the Marshall Fire and the 2013 floods, resulting in billions of dollars in damages and the loss of beloved community members. What specifically will you do in the state legislature to help Colorado do its part to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, deal with the climate crisis, and to work toward climate resilience?
Well, I thank you for the question. I served on the Board of Health for Boulder County in 2000 and was on the board and working when the flood occurred. And many of my Latina community neighbors were left homeless with that flood. In fact, an entire Latina neighborhood was disbanded and not able to move back in together. And that flood, the 2013 flood, was caused by climate change. I was also the sitting senator when the Marshall Fire occurred. So we have done many things. We've set climate goals, climate change goals for greenhouse gas emissions. I have run a climate change reduction bill every year, whether it be electric vehicles, and I'm so glad to hear my opponent has an electric vehicle. I also do. A solar panel, solar energy, sustainable energy are all topics that I have worked on.
Candidate Van Loan.
Yeah, let me follow up with saying I appreciate the work that the legislature has done. Part of my electric car, and I had one years ago too, and there are a lot of rebates which allow you to get into one for cheap. And if just plain tuning up the environment it will help climate change, I'm all for that, and I think the state's done a great job. We had a discussion with one of the Boulder County commissioners, Commissioner Deaton Stolzman, and she was so excited. She got $200 million from the Inflation Reduction Act to go towards electrification, which, being in the trades, I'm very much for electrification of heat pumps and all the fans you can get, and just the cleaning up of the grid. So I am excited, and we can argue whether we caused climate change or not. I don't really care. Here's the problem. Let's fix it. And if we clean up everything we possibly can, then we can look ourselves with a straight face in the mirror and say, grandchildren, we tried, and I liked what we're trying. Thank you.
The next question will begin with candidate Van Loan, and it is, do improvements need to be made through legislative action to improve mental and behavioral health support and care? If so, what actions can be taken to improve the state's mental and behavioral health care?
Yeah, nobody's going to like this answer. When I was a kid, we went to school with guns in our trucks and no one cared. And today, you can't mention the word gun, people freak out. So, what's the difference? And the difference is the internet and the ability to get these violent video games. And I know I'm not into banning books and censoring, but if you've ever watched a video game, some of these are just crazy. They actually teach you how to go kill people. That's ridiculous. There should be age appropriateness to that. Some of the rap lyrics, I think we need to promote a culture of decency and a culture of calm and a culture of love each other instead of this culture of, let's go have a rap music about killing people and promote a video game that does the same thing. All of those are ridiculous. And so if I can help set that example, I certainly will.
Candidate Jaquez Lewis.
Yes, thank you for the question. Before I get there, I know I just have a minute. I just want to say, Tom, I actually passed the EV tax credit bill in 2019, so I'm glad you took advantage of it. But back to mental health. We don't have enough mental health providers. There's just absolutely documented that we do not have enough therapists and mental health providers that can help our kids, that can help families. I did, when we had the extra money coming in during COVID, I did pass legislation for more workforce training. We don't have those funds anymore. In fact, we're running a deficit for the state budget, predicted to be in 2025 and 2026 of $500 million deficit. However, we can do more for mental health. We can offer tax credits for folks who want to change careers. We can offer more assistance in our community colleges. We can do more, and I hope to.
The next question will begin with candidate Jaquez Lewis. What is your position on ballot proposal number 79 titled Right to Abortion?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm proud to say that I have been a supporter of reproductive rights and abortion healthcare services for many, many, many years. I was a pharmacy director at a Medicaid health plan, and I helped introduce that coverage at that particular health plan. I am the Senate sponsor for a Senate bill last year, 188, that was a shield bill to make sure that providers, doctors, pharmacists, other folks working in reproductive healthcare services could not be prosecuted by other states. That bill also had first of its kind in the country coverage for gender affirming care. And I'm proud to say that President Biden and Vice President Harris invited me to the White House to talk with other legislators about how to do that. So I will be supporting that measure, and I'm out there, I would collected signatures and will support it.
Candidate Van Loan.
Yeah, once again, I don't support the actual constitutional amendment. I think the legislature's already pulled all these triggers, and we have a law in place that allows for abortion up to X amount of time. And I think if the constituency changes, that constitutional amendments are harder to deal with. And right now the legislature's got it under control, so I don't really see the need for this constitutional amendment. However, I get it. People want the right, and they want the surety, if you will, of that particular right, and I don't have a problem with that. I wish it didn't have to be always constitutional amendments. Thank you.
And this will be our last question, and we'll begin with, before our closing remarks, we'll begin with candidate Van Loan, and we're going to take 90 seconds for this question. And it's on guns. The leading cause of death for children and teens in this country is gun violence. Last year, an assault weapons ban bill passed the House, but died in the Senate. What will you do if elected to help prevent gun violence in Colorado?
I am glad you asked. I am a gun guy. I'm not a gun nut. I know a lot of gun nuts, and they're not the people that I'm worried about. The people I'm worried about are those people that watch video games and go out and just do crazy stuff because they feel like their life doesn't matter. So it ties into the mental health in that regard. I'm not going to add any laws to this because I think we need to let the ones that we have settle. I know that a lot of the laws that were added in the last few years are being fought out in court. So let's see what the court decides before we add more. I am very much a proponent, though, and I own a couple of non-lethal weapons, and I would advocate for non-lethal weaponry in your home if you decide that you need a gun for protection, because it means you're not going to kill anybody. You're going to stop them from doing what they're doing with a pepper ball or whatever you have loaded in it, and you're not going to kill them, because I don't think anybody wants to kill people. So I would advocate for non-lethal solutions. I would advocate for better grasp on life through mental health training. And if it has to be in the schools, so be it. We need to get along with each other and not point pistols. Thank you.
Candidate Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you for the question very much. I wish we could all get along. I wish that we could, stop these horrific acts from happening by just saying we want them to go away, but we can't. It takes legislation. It takes reframing how we look at firearms in our society. I have been supported by all the major gun violence prevention groups. I am a Gun Sense owner. I'm a Gun Sense candidate. I have passed 8 different pieces of legislation that hopefully are preventing gun violence. Let me share just a quick personal story. I passed a bill that closed the loophole for boyfriends having firearms if they had a domestic violence charge. And a woman called me up 2 weeks after the governor signed it. And she said, "You saved my life." And I was like, "What happened?" And she said, "He didn't tell them he had guns, but he posted it on Facebook. They went to his house and they got the guns. He had been threatening me, but until you passed that bill, they couldn't stop him from coming after me." So I just want you to know that no Republican has ever voted for any of our gun violence prevention measures. We've got to do more.
Now to our closing statements, and we will begin with candidate Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you to the League and to my Republican opponent and those of you watching. I firmly believe that Senate District 17 needs a thoughtful, compassionate leader with a record of accomplishment at the Capitol to be our voice in the Senate. You know, we faced 2 big crises in Senate District 17, COVID and a Marshall Fire. I believe our community stepped up, we worked together, and I was able to, with your help, pass legislation on so many of the issues that we've talked about tonight. As an educator, I believe we can do more. We can protect funding for public education and our teachers. We have much more work to do, and I'm proud to say I have the endorsement of over 50 national and statewide orgs for my work in the Colorado Senate. But it's your vote, your endorsement that I'm asking for. So I hope you will pick Sonia Jaquez Lewis on November 5th. Thank you so much.
Candidate Van Loan.
Well, thank you very much again to the League. Thank you, Senator. I can't not call you Senator because that's the way I'm trained. And I appreciate everything you have done through passing bills and being involved in the state legislature. It's a hard job, and it's one that you have to sacrifice to be in. Anyway, I just want the League and anybody that listens to know that I'm a very optimistic person. I have been all of my life. I've been blessed all of my life. I've been given some talents and work ethic, and I've been able to succeed. And I believe that innovation and technology and clean grids and those things are going to help us. They're going to save humanity. And I think if we allow it to and we seed money these things, the electric car runs on solar panel electricity. So I'm very happy about the technology that we've in medical and the whole bit. So I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. Appreciate this Senator Lewis being on with me tonight. And thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
On behalf of the League and Longmont Public Media, I would like to thank our candidates, and not only for your participation in tonight's forum, and it's been great, but also for your participation in the democratic process, running for office, serving as an elected official, All of that is very hard work, and we appreciate your efforts. I want to send out a huge thank you to our LIG 2024 Platinum level election sponsors. That's Premier Members Credit Union and WANA Brands. And finally, thanks to the Boulder County voters for participating as viewers. It's up to all of us to make sure we respect and work to protect our democratic processes. Too many people have struggled to win these rights for us not to use them. And it starts with being an informed and active voter. Before signing off, I would like to alert voters that tonight's forum, as well as many others, will be available not only on Longmont Public Media's sites, but also on the LIG's website, lwvbc.org. Our YouTube channel, and also on our YouTube channel, and also on vote411.org. Vote 411 is the LIG's premier voter information guide that supplies nonpartisan information on state and local candidates, ballot issues and questions, and much, much more. Resources available on Vote 411 are also available in Spanish. The League of Women Voters of Boulder County works throughout the year to empower voters and defend democracy. If you want to lend your time and your skills to encourage civic engagement for all people in a nonpartisan manner, please join us. All the information you need is at lwvbc.org. Have a great evening and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.